I basically constructed my own philosophy of the vibe, which I refer to as bodily emanation. In other words, your body emanates or radiates an actual feeling your energy out into the world, and other bodies can feel that and experience that. And that's really where I began, working on this vibe stuff. And then over the next 30 plus years or so, all right, I would come back and forth to that. I would do other things, but it was always a passion of mine. And a few years back, maybe 4, 5, 6 years ago, I decided, well, I'm going to go back to this thing full time, and been creating this website called 20 Minute Vibe. I'm currently working on a book about vibes. And so here we are. That's how I got here.
Right. Yeah, because actually, I didn't know it was that long ago. Because when do you think it started? Was this like 20 years ago, 30 years ago? Is
Oh,
this something? Is this something we brought from like just the concept? I'm sure it came from vibrations,
right.
obviously, but I wonder, is this like hippie,
Mm-hmm.
culture from the 60s and 70s
All right.
that has finally really taken off into a way that we can all use it? Is that where it started?
Yeah, pretty. I mean, so the short history is really going back to the 60s, right? That's where most people think about where the word begins, right? So like you said, the hippies, the countercultural movement during this time period, everything's about vibrations, etc. At some point, they got shortened to just a vibe, right? But you can find examples of that predating hippies, going back, let's say, the beatniks in the 50s, or jazz musicians a bit earlier, right? And then if you go around the world, most societies and most cultures throughout human history have some version of this word. It may not be called vibe exactly or vibration, but something along those
Mm,
lines, right? So if we understand the word vibe as being short for vibration, then vibration then often brings up kind of a spiritual connotation. And if that's the case, you can go all the way back to ancient China, ancient Japan, ancient India, and they all talk about this kind of energy exchange between human beings, between the universe, etc. That's more about based on mysticism, right? But again,
all right.
most civilizations throughout human history have some version of this. In contemporary times, I found examples in North America, South America, European countries, African countries, Asian countries, Australia. I mean, literally all over the world. It's not just the year 2025 in America. So it's a very common framework for understanding some aspect of our experience.
Right. Okay. Yeah, because I mean, there is this crazy, well, crazy. There's this theory out there that says like it's potentially true that human beings all act as one organism,
Mm-hmm.
and everyone somehow connects to each other either through our brains or the vibes or the emotions that we give out, and so we can really infuse how we feel through other people, and that becomes the change for how our organisms itself
Sure.
acts. And I kind of use that as how I understand the word vibe. I mean, there are people that will use it to death, like I said,
Mm.
and it can get pretty annoying. Someone sees a nice brunch spot and they're like, "Oh, that's a vibe."
Right.
You're like, "You're killing me." But the way that you described it when I found your profile is I really like that we can really think about. I think it helps us think through ourselves more profoundly.
Mm-hmm.
Where what is the vibe I feel in this friendship, in this relationship, in this job, in this concert? Do I feel like there's something wrong here? Like there is something sub-perceptual
Mm-hmm.
that I think not a lot of us can really connect to. We've heard all those stories of people, as you will, tap into a vibe and realize like I should leave this house right now because it feels like shit's about to go down. And sure enough, after they leave, something not so great happens.
Yeah.
And so through your research, what things have really stood out that you think maybe this idea of the vibe is more of an objective thing that we should be listening to instead of just some throwaway comment you say to your friend?
Sure. Well, I begin with the human body and human experience, right? And I say that because I want to concretize our understanding of vibes, right? So kind of what you're implying in some of your comments here is that it's commonly overused as a word, right? And if we
Yeah.
overuse it, then it means nothing. It can also be very kind of hippy dippy, esoteric. No one's really explaining what they're saying, etc. It's like so I say, well, back up for a second, right? Right. Every human being has a body. That's a fact, right? And we experience the world through our bodies. Right? And then I think there's always a feeling to human experience in one way or another, right? You may not be focused on the feeling aspect, right? A lot of our existence is very rational, very intellectual, etc. But if you stop for a second and pause, you can feel yourself into a situation. You can feel yourself into an environment. You can feel yourself into an interaction with another human being. The question then becomes, how do we elevate that experience of feeling to a conscious level of knowledge? That's kind of what I'm trying to do, right? So I'm a bona fide intellectual. When I say that, I don't say that with any arrogance. It's kind of how I'm built, how I move through the world. And so I take it upon myself to help other people understand and explain to themselves what they're experiencing, what they're feeling, and turn that feeling into an idea. And once you have an idea, now you have more control over what it means, how to define it, how to understand it, etc. All right. Now, to back up
Mm.
for a moment, right, I'd invite your listeners to take note over the next week or so about how often they use the word or they hear someone else use the word, either in face-to-face interaction, on text messages, on social media, in a song, on TV, whatever the case may be. And I will
Right.
guarantee that they'll be shocked about how often they come across the word, right? And the question is, though, well, then how do we understand this? Why are we all using it so often? And so on.